Welcome along to our next video in the series where we're going to demonstrate the Xinaps Fire Safety Assessor. In the early design stages of your building, fire safety is very important, and that's things like the compartment size, egress distances to nominated fire escapes, and also fire extinguisher placement and location. So when it comes to these type of matters, different firms and different people will set things up in different ways. Sometimes you'll use an area plan, some people will use parameters, and what's really cool about the Xinaps Fire Safety Assessor is it adapts to the way you work, and it also gives you immediate feedback as to whether your design is compliant or not with the standards that you input. So let's have a look at the Fire Safety Assessor. The user interface is similar to all of the Xinaps range of apps. When we have a look at the Fire Safety Assessor, you have the ribbon up here which gives you the health check of the main criteria that it's checking. So we've got the compartment size, egress path, egress time, and fire hose coverage. So let's have a look at these components individually now. The fire compartments first of all. So the first question in our mind is, how are these compartments being defined? Because you may have set things up in a certain way in your project, you want Xinaps to work with that. So let's go into the settings. We can tell the app to look at fire compartments by a room parameter, wall parameter, or an area plan scheme. In my case, I'm going to use a room parameter, and I've set in this sample model the fire compartment as the room parameter. So let's go OK. So now the app has gone and collected all of the rooms with these room parameter values and calculated the total fire compartment, and using intelligent occupancy values, how many people are likely to be in that space, how many exits come out of that space, the total exit width, and the maximum egress distance. So that has happened very quickly, really, when you think about it, and that's taking a lot of heavy lifting away from you and doing it in a computer program, which is exactly what you want. There are some other settings to do with the maximum egress path. So obviously if we change the maximum egress path to, let's say, 25 meters, depending on your local regulation, now you can see that fire compartment 1 and compartment 3, basically we need to introduce another exit into that space. We'll set it back to 30. We've also got the maximum compartment size. Now, depending on the situation you're working in with fire and smoke compartments, you may have to deal with a 500 square meter compartment size. And as you can see then, compartment 1 and compartment 3 would not comply with that compartment size. So then you would go in and adjust room parameters, or otherwise change your design to make it compliant. Now, as with the other Xinaps apps, we've got the really cool visualization just by clicking on the button here on the end. And it's going to show us how the pathfinding algorithm has determined the maximum egress path. So as we kind of zoom around here, we can see the fire exits are clearly defined. So if we went to our model, the doors would have a parameter set that shows Xinaps that it's a fire exit. And then we've got basically all the areas that are within the escape range and this maximum egress path here, which would match in with that 25.68 meter distance. The other doors that are not yet defined as egress or escape doors as well. So that's a really cool, really nice, quick way to check your fire compartments. What about egress time? So on some large or significant projects, you may employ a specific piece of software that does this type of calculation, that does how long it's going to take for people to exit the building. Now Xinaps has put this all into this app using its pathfinding algorithm, along with basically a number of calculation steps to determine how long it takes for the people to leave the building based on the number of persons and also things like the exit widths. So we can view this information by a number of different main criteria: levels, compartments, or rooms. And we can see basically in these columns is at this first calculation step, or at 0 minute, let's say that's when an emergency has been triggered and it's time to leave the building. There's this many people in each space. So in this cafeteria area there may be 64 people at the first calculation step. And then as time goes on, basically the areas start to fill up because other people are going through this space, and then it will start to empty as they leave that space at each calculation step. So we have a number of settings here. How many calculation steps do you want to do? What's the maximum egress time? Again, perhaps based on our local standard. And let's change this to, say, 5 minutes. As you can see, what that's going to do is grow the graph further, and we'll see a more granular amount of information. And we can see here also the parameters that it's using to determine the speed at which people are moving through exits and exiting the building. So again, the animation is really nice. We can look at individual rooms by clicking on that room button. So this is showing us basically the highlighted room, this quite large floor area here, the maximum egress path associated with that room, other doors, and as you can see, it's even looking at not just one floor level but multiple floor levels to determine these fire escapes. And then there's the 3D animation, which is also got a time factor to it. So we're looking now basically at an intensity graph of how many people are in the building and in what rooms. If we press play here, it's going to show us what's happening at each step as basically the building starts to empty. So let's have a look at this animation. You see the outer rooms are emptying, inner areas are getting filled with people, and then they're slowly exiting right out of the building. So that is really an invaluable little animation. Again, that's taking almost no work on your part aside from setting up a few main criteria and parameters for that calculation to occur. So again, you get the overall kind of health check here, 50 minutes for 306 persons, and you need to check that against your local code for compliance. Finally, we've got fire hose coverage, and we can view that at the different levels in our building. As you can see here in level 2, there's a bit of an issue there, not really enough coverage. We can have a look at the settings to see how this is working. Basically, you can change the length that each extinguisher will cover, and that's to do with the fire hose as well. Basically what we can do then, if we want to, we can go in and add another extinguisher and see what the effect would be. So let's go to level 2. And we've got, actually that was the hose reel. Let's make a new one of these and place it up here where we basically needed extra coverage. Go back into the fire safety. Have a look at our fire hose coverage at level 2. As you can see now, we've essentially got good coverage. We may need to tweak things a little bit down here. And you can see here that this graph is obviously calculating constantly as well, telling us how much coverage of our building we have covered by fire hoses and extinguishers. So that's a quick overview. We do have a 3D visualization of that same data. Again, it's showing you both floors of the building, a quick overview of everything, which in Revit itself, quite hard to get something like that because you're normally looking at individual plans, maybe you're filtering data, trying to override colors, whereas this is doing it for the entire building in one view. So that's a real quick demo of the Fire Safety Assessor and some of the features that you're going to expect to see. Basically, it's empowering designers to get information that may be quite challenging to get otherwise. Perhaps you'd have to use an engineer or something. and it's allowing you to tweak the key values to iterate your design, get the best possible design in the quickest possible time, and connecting very close to the Revit environment, which Xinaps is doing across its entire range. So I recommend that you check it out, get the trial, go to the Xinaps website, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye!